And here we are on the Between Two Worlds, stories of belief, unbelief, and everything in between. I am your co-host, Scott Trout, here with,
Joey.
and we are very excited to give you episode number 2 of this podcast. Joey, always good to see you.
Good to see you too, Scott.
For those of you who didn't get a chance to listen to our riveting first episode, Joey and I know each other from improv, and we come from very different religious backgrounds or spiritual backgrounds. And so we thought it'd be fun to start a podcast where we interview our friends and get to know their stories of what they believe about spirituality. And that could be on a religious side, or it could just be on like a more universal energy, spiritual side. It could be faith or atheistic. There is no God, there is nothing. And yeah, we're going to be interviewing them and getting them on here, telling their stories and helping people to see why people believe what they believe. And today I get the fun of Joey interviewing me. So you're going to hear my story.
Are you ready for this, Scott? Are you ready to tell people where you're from?
I'm a little nervous, but I think it's going to be great.
So, hi everybody. Today we're gonna interview Scott. Scott, are you happy to be here today? That's what I want to know.
Oh yeah. So we're doing this one in the morning. The previous one we did in like the afternoon. A little groggy, but it's like 10. And as an adult, this should be, when I'm ready for the day. So I'm excited.
I just had my coffee. I'm totally ready for today. I'm ready to lay it on you, lay it on take, and be like, Scott, where are you from? Tell me right now where you're from and what's your story.
All right. So I am from America. And a hush went over the crowd. No, I'm just kidding. I love the States. And from America, I'm specifically from Colorado, which is really where I feel a strong identity. Love Colorado. If you don't know it, it's got a lot of mountains, real pretty. Hopefully, everyone should visit it at some point, including you, Joey.
I will.
And my wife and I, we just recently moved to Amsterdam about 9 months ago.
So tell us, Scott, what did you do before you moved here? Like what did you do and why did you move here eventually?
Yes. So for my job, well, okay, let me back up a little bit. I studied theater in college. So I studied acting, and you can't see this on the podcast because it's just audio, but I have a very expressive face. It's just always doing something. And that was what it was since I was a kid. I was always inserting my head into other people's photos. And I thought, like, the photo needs this face. So I studied theater. I wanted to be an actor, and I specifically wanted to go to Chicago to do improv acting. There's this troupe called Second City, real famous. Pretty high dreams on my end to try to get in, but I wanted to kind of work my way up, taking classes, all that good stuff. I'm also from a Christian background, Christian family, and that has a huge impact on who I am and how I see the world, as well as what I want to do with my life. And so those two worlds, basically, which kind of is why I can relate to the title of our podcast, between these two worlds of creativity, theater, acting, as well as Christianity, religion, faith. Those kind of had two factors on what I wanted to do in my life. And so basically, post-college, actually more like in my last year, I really felt this tension. I wanted to be an actor, but there were certain parts of acting that really they were really hard for me, to be honest. It's like the self-promotion side of things. They're like constantly trying to be better than other people, or to get cast at so that someone else doesn't get cast, or to have people notice you and think that you're worth their time. That started to get pretty draining. And what I realized is I actually I love telling stories. It's one of my favorite things. That's why I love theater. And during college, and I could explain more of this, I met a group called the Navigators organization that meets with students, builds community, and does one-on-one mentorship. And through the guy that mentored me, I decided I actually want to go and do what he does. I want to work for the Navigators. I want to work with students and helping them with their faith. So I did 4 years of that at Oregon State. I moved across the country. It's where I met my wife, and she wasn't with the Navigators. She thought it was a sailing club, which pretty much everyone does. And then we got married. We were still in Oregon for a little bit longer. And early on, even before we got married, we thought we would love to go overseas at some point to do basically missionary work, be a missionary. And kind of a whole long little story there of how Amsterdam developed. But pretty early on in our marriage, we said, this is what we want to be about. We want to be used by God wherever he wants to send us. And Amsterdam became that place. And then there was kind of a long year process of getting ready. And then 9 months ago, on September 11th, yikes, horrible day to fly, we arrived. That's when we got here.
Oh man, you almost arrived on my birthday as well.
When's
So
your
close.
birthday?
8th of September. So close.
Well, now, actually, our anniversary is September 3rd. Your birthday is the 8th. And the date that we arrived, September 11th. It's a weird feeling flying on that day, but I guess in a weird sense, I thought it's kind of like lightning never strikes the same place twice. So this day actually might be the safest day.
Wait, that's kind of interesting because I'm for those without context clues, he's talking about 9/11. But yeah, but is that actually in your mind when you fly on that date? Was that actually like a big thing for you?
I don't actually know how it all kind of happened. I think Briana was the one that picked the flights, and we were mostly going off of price, and we knew we wanted to go after our anniversary. So I think it just kind of worked out. But then on the day, I was just like, "Oh, this is intense." But I don't live my life with a lot of fear. Sometimes it's stupidity, and sometimes it's bravery. So I didn't think too much about it. I was just like, this is just more of a fun thing to tell people versus being scared.
I see how you do this. Okay. It's an interesting story so far, Scott, because I did not know you actually had to prepare for a year. Like, what kind of stuff did you need to prepare for? Are there specific rules that you had to follow, or maybe within your marriage that there were specific things that you wanted to do in that year? Like, elaborate on that a bit.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so there was a lot, and there was a lot more than we actually thought there would be. Although looking back on it now, we're really grateful for the fact that our organization slowed things down for us. We were like gung-ho, like, yeah, we're awesome. The Lord is awesome. Amsterdam's awesome. Connect all the dots. This is going to be a really easy process. And yeah, we were young in our marriage, young relatively in the world, in our life experiences. Yeah, so we were both 27, I think, when we started this process of coming overseas. And so there's several different preparations. We had to do trainings. So there's like cross-cultural Bible study that we did, just talking through what does the Bible say about working in a different culture than your own, and are there examples of that, and are there principles that can be helpful? Big things like how to be a learner versus just coming in and trying to fix everything and just being like, hey y'all, I'm from America and you need to listen to me because I'm a Christian and here's the way to do things. But yeah, trying to be like, let me learn about the culture and see what is beautiful about the culture and what people are doing and where God is already at work. So there's those kind of trainings, as well as language acquisition, how to learn a new language, stresses that are associated with moving to a different country. So different things like that. Then we had to do fundraising. So interesting little tidbit about my job. Everything that we do is funded through individuals, churches, families, friends. So we're kind of like crowd-funded or crowdsourced, just in a little bit more of an official way. So it's all through the organization. But yeah, we were talking with people, talking with my parents' friends, talking with our friends, talking with churches, telling them, hey, here's what we're up to. This is why we want to do this, why we're going to Amsterdam, what we're going to be doing. And then people, if they believed in us and what we were doing and what God was doing through us, they would support us. So many of them support us on a monthly basis. Many of them gave large one-time sums to help pay for our expenses over here, which that's pretty awesome. It's very humbling. And then a lot of it was also marriage counseling. That was probably the biggest thing that extended our timeline. Is the Navs just knew anytime anybody moves overseas, it can put a lot of strain on your relationship. And so if there's any unresolved or unexamined aspects of your marriage or relationship prior to going, it's only going to get, magnified. And so they really wanted to dig through that with us. So we did some stuff with the Navs, and then we actually went through a professional counselor, and I got individual counseling, and Briana got counseling, and we got counseling together. We thought it was going to be like 3 months, turned into 9 months. And, but it feels like we're on a lot more solid foundation now because of what we went through.
Man, that sounds really intense. Thinking you can go and then 9 months later you can actually go after a lot of extra training.
Yes.
So
yes.
I'm actually kind of curious. It's like, what is the main thing you think you've learned in those 9 months that you're using right now?
Heavy questions, Joey. Well, let's see. I guess if we're gonna go within marriage, is that I'll go there.
Whatever feels right for you.
There really was a ton that we learned. There was this one like month-long training that we went through. It was so fun. It was so awesome. But marriage counseling really was some of the biggest takeaways. One of the big ones is I didn't think we needed it. And so one of my biggest takeaways is that we did. We needed it. It was really humbling to see that, admit that. It was frustrating to have authority figures, our bosses, say you guys aren't ready and you need to go through these things. That really hit me personally, because I think I want to perform. I want to meet people's expectations. I want to exceed people's expectations. And so to be put in a place where I had to submit, like I wanted to go overseas. I couldn't until these things. And then even within the process, they had given us kind of a range, 3 to 6 months of counseling. But really it was, you can go when you're healthy, which is like, that is nebulous. Like, what does that even mean? When you're healthy? How do you know when you're healthy? And I'm so glad, because I wanted to check it off the box. Like, boom, nailed it, did my sessions, time to go. And they were like, no, you can go once you feel like things have really helped. Yeah. And so what we were learning how to do, if you know the counseling world, we were going through EFT. It's emotionally focused therapy. And that is how to learn to hear each other on an emotional level. So as opposed to just hearing what you think you're hearing, the other person's, I don't know, arguments or like the ways that they're hurting you, you're like, I'm being hurt, you're frustrating. but actually hearing for what they're trying to say and their emotions. So, a lot of sessions of like turning toward each other and sharing how we feel. But it was so good.
Oh man, that's a month long. Those kind of sessions sound so intense. Like I can't even imagine. But
Yeah.
so Scott, for us that don't know, because actually a funny thing, I've known Scott for also more than almost no, actually longer than half a year now. So time really flies.
Yeah.
But I actually don't know which part of religion you are from. So what branch is your branch?
Yes. This is a great question. And I love it because so the reason Joey and I wanted to do a podcast is because of our differences. Like that we come from religion from different standpoints. Joey, you'll get a chance to share your story, but it seems like you come more as like a blank slate. You don't have much experience. You weren't trained in anything or raised by your parents with any sort of faith or anything. And so you more are like just curious, you're a curious person, you want to know things. Right? That's how you would articulate it.
Yes, that's actually spot on.
And then I was raised in a specific faith, Christianity, and then I'm still practicing, still call myself Christian, follower of Jesus, that kind of thing. So then what I love about this question is because hopefully we're going to have a very Christian audience and a very non-Christian audience and like people from all over listening in. So some people, as I throw out Christian terms that are like, oh yeah, we get it. And then other people are like, don't know anything that he's talking about right now. Okay, so Christian branch. So there's like kind of big branches. There's the Catholics and Protestants. I'm more from the Protestant side, although my mom was raised Catholic and became Protestant, so that's kind of cool. There's actually a lot of transformations in my family, which is maybe one of my favorite things, that we aren't just like generation passed down, but both my parents had this moment kind of around my age, maybe like when they were 25 earlier, I guess, where they decided to actually be Christians. They were raised with some sort of faith and then decided, no, we want to believe this. And that's very similar to my story. Raised with like a foundation, decided to not build on the foundation and kind of do my own thing, and then realized, oh no, that's a good foundation and I believe in this stuff now for me. So I would say some of the labels that you might know, I'm probably more on the evangelical side of Christianity, which basically means it's such a watered down term. I don't even know what it means these days. It basically means that we want to share our faith with other people. Everyone kind of thinks evangelical means they hate gays. It's not true.
It sounds like you walk around in circles with wings on your back and just singing like beautiful songs.
That's true. It does kind of sound like evangelical. Yeah, weird. Terms. And then there's like some smaller little branch thingies, but I don't know if they're that important because I really think the differences within the Christian church, of which there's like a bunch of different denominations or groups or whatever, I think it's actually really important that those are there because different people, due to personalities or how they're raised or theological standpoint, they emphasize different things. And so kind of the big picture is that we all make each other better because we can learn something from this group and this group can learn something from this group. But the organization I work for, the Navigators, it's interdenominational, which means they work with all different denominations of the Christian faith. So we're truly trying to just help people figure out who was Jesus, what did he say, how did he live, and how can we be like him? So that's what we try to do.
So, Scott, I think a lot of people are very curious about what you do here. like for your job? How do you help people? What do you do with your group specifically? Like elaborate on that a little bit.
I'm also trying to figure it out. So, okay, little sprinkling of history on the Navigators. The Navigators started in the 1940s. In World War II, there was a guy who believed he loved the Bible. He believed what it said, and he believed that Jesus wanted all Christians to help other people become followers of Jesus. So making disciples being followers. So he started doing it in the Navy. He lived in California, and he mentored these guys who would then go on to the Navy ships, and then they would be mentoring guys on the Navy ships. And then pretty soon, like whole Navy ships were called like floating seminaries, like where you become like a pastor or something, because of these guys and how seriously they took their faith and how much they were passing it on to others. So like, sailors, which is usually like really rough and tumble people, becoming Christians, having their lives changed. And then those guys came back, and in the States, military servicemen could get free education after the war. So then they go to college campuses, and that's where the collegiate work started, all the colleges and the universities. Now these little guys are mentoring guys and girls on the campuses, and it's like spreading. So it's like military and the colleges. And so really long history all the way up until today. And they're all over the world. They're in like 108 countries. Our international president is Kenyan. People all over Europe and East Asia, so all over the place. Really exciting. And America is still the hub, but there's growing work all over, and actually, especially in the Netherlands, which is pretty cool. I think it's one of the largest ministries here in the Netherlands. And so what we specifically do, there's kind of a separation. There's the Dutch navigators, and they work in Dutch, and they're working with Dutch students. And then there's the little international navigators, and that's me, my wife, and 3 other couples and a single dude who are here in the city. And we are working with international students, helping build a home away from home. So we do things in our homes. We have meals together. We're studying the Bible with international students to help them wrestle through those same questions. Who is Jesus? Is he relevant? What did he say? How can we follow him? Should you follow him? And it's pretty small. We've got maybe 25 or so students with us. We're now in about 4 separate houses for like smaller groups. And then we also are doing the one-on-one mentorship. And during that, me with a guy, or Briana with, a gal, talking them through who do you want to be? What do you believe? What questions do you have? We're reading the Bible together. We're helping build character and faith. And again, helping them figure out what it means to follow Jesus.
That's really cool, man. So I can imagine that you find a lot of different cultures as well within Amsterdam. And I find it funny that like normally when you talk about Christianity or religion, that it's like hundreds of years old, and your group is only 80 years old, which is actually kind of funny to hear that it's relatively young, but relatively growing big in comparison, because it's already all over the world.
Totally.
So I wonder, with your students, is everyone religious when they come in, or do you also find people that are just curious, like me, jumping in, but also going a step further and actually participating more and more and becoming religious?
That's a great question. Yeah, that's the hope. The hope is not to just have a little huddle of Christians and we're like, never go into the world. Let's just hang out together. Everyone's crazy except for us.
We have free food. Stay with us.
Yeah, let's just take care of ourselves. Don't talk to anyone. So the hope is we gather as Christians, but it's so that we can be equipped to talk to others, to talk to those who don't know, who aren't religious. And so, yeah, the hope is that our group is a gathering place for anyone in their spiritual journey, no matter where they are. Whether they're like, yeah, I believe in this, or they're like, I'm kind of looking into this, or they're like, definitely don't believe this. The hope would be that we could have conversations with everyone. The reality is that a lot of times it just becomes just Christians because we are reading the Bible. And so you have to be a certain type of person to be cool with coming into our Christian zone, because we're like unashamedly, it's not like we're like, we're going to look into all the religions and then pick one. We're like, no, we're looking into this. It's like it's a focus group. Looking into this, seeing if it's relevant for our life. So you've got to be somebody who's cool with that, which you are. And I love that you came into our space. But yeah, it felt like you're like, whoa, okay, there's a culture here that I am not used to potentially. But hopefully it was warm, it was inviting. You didn't feel like you had to be somebody or pretend. Because I really believe when you get opposing viewpoints in the same room, that actually makes everyone better, as opposed to everyone just agreeing and we're all like, yeah, this is the truth. It's awesome. So we really try to help people wrestle with doubt, questions, not force them into a certain aspect of their journey, but just to be like, come as you are. One of the things we often say every week is we've got like the ABCDs of our group, and the first one is authentic. We want everyone to just come as you are. So that's the hope.
Well, yeah, and to answer your question about is it open and how do you feel, like, yes, definitely, you feel open, you feel warm, you feel welcome. I think if you want to join the group for a day, you need to be open for discussion, but also open to talk about it in a friendly way. Like, it's all right to be on the opposite side of the spectrum, but don't go be like, oh no, God doesn't exist and this is why, but be open to listen to the other side as well. Like, that's interesting. I can see how you think that is a thing for you. Like, if that's the way you think, I think it's awesome to visit your group.
Yeah. And then I think the reality too is sometimes, like, so just for me personally, I love having conversations with people who don't believe in Christianity. And that's often what improv is like. There's more people predominantly who are non-religious, or they used to be religious and then have moved away from it. And I love those conversations because it really challenges me. People are like, well, why do you believe this? Or what about this? Or you're stupid. I'm like, thank you for telling me. And so I'm still trying to figure it out. How do I bring these two worlds together to have good conversations? But for right now, I have conversations over here and then I have conversations over here. But the whole time I'm kind of doing the same thing. I'm trying to help people figure out, what do you believe and why do you believe it?
Yeah, so the first thing that popped in my mind when you said that is like, do you feel, how do you feel with your theater background doing improv and doing theater? Does it challenge your religion besides people telling you that you're stupid, apparently? But does it challenge you in an other way? Like, if you do a specific scene as a non-religious character, do you feel challenged because your beliefs are also on the line? How do you deal with those kind of moments?
Yeah, that's another good question. Man, yeah, for real, I've faced that a lot. Yeah. So I think I've felt challenges in some different ways, both on stage and off stage. Off stage, it's more of the conversations. I don't think anyone's called me stupid. They might have thought it. But I have been called like dangerous, like your ideas are dangerous. Mostly I think people just don't want to engage. They're like, well, that's actually even not true. I think if I come at it trying to change people, people don't want to engage. If I come at it from wanting to understand people, then of course people want to engage, because that's a beautiful conversation when two people are trying to understand the other person. If you're just trying to change, then you're not really listening. So I really try to do a lot of listening. But it seems like you're also asking about acting and how my faith has affected, my ability to play characters, or decisions of like what I will or won't do on stage, kind of thing. Is that your?
Yeah, I'm really curious because especially in theater, there's like really big conflicting characters, and I felt like maybe you've played a very conflicting character, and like especially because you try to combine the two worlds or make it more inviting for religious people to get into theater. But how do you deal with a specific character that is like the complete opposite of who you are?
Totally. Man, that's so good. So the great thing about this is I've thought a lot about this, so I love this question. This actually isn't just a Christian actors issue, or not only Christians will be confronted by this, though it seems like it, because Christians are like, oh, like you probably won't have sex on stage, or
I hope not.
or pretend to, or be naked, or I don't know, or be some violent guy. Or honestly, I think with Christians, it's more the sexuality stuff that's what they don't want to be a part of. But I would say anyone as an actor always goes through a process of figuring out what character is deplorable to me, or like deplorable meaning disgusting or reviling, or like I don't like this person. And you can have that no matter who you are, because everyone has a standard for a good person and a not good person. And so for the atheist, playing a Christian actually might be really hard for them to actually understand, why does this person believe what they believe, especially if it's like a Christian, I don't know, fundamentalist who has really strong beliefs against gay marriage, or something like that. So for me, I've had to think this through. But what I try to do, there's kind of two different, I think, Christian actors. No one can see my hands, but they're really working. My hands are really working. So some Christians say there are things that I as a person am not willing to do. And actually everyone should do that, obviously. It's like everyone should be like, I'm not going to kill a cat on stage. That should be just one of those universal things. No matter what the role is, I'm not going to kill a cat in front of a live audience.
A baby could be fine, but
What? Uh-oh, Joe, I just found out what your line is. I'm just kidding. So it's good to know kind of where that line is. But I think Christians often draw that line pretty quickly of I don't want to be seen as doing any of these things, cussing, or even kissing another woman if you're married, or that kind of thing. And certainly I respect that, because it is like, well, is it me up there, or is it just the character, and it's not so black and white? It is you up there, but you are playing a character. So then the other side is, I believe that acting in theater, improv, movies, your job is to bring someone else's life to life. You're telling their story and bringing it to life. And so the more honest you are as an actor, where people are like, kind of forget that it's you up there, and they're like, whoa, I'm seeing this character, Ray Bradford or something, as opposed to Scott. That's good acting, when you kind of lose the sense of, wow, that's Leonardo DiCaprio. It's like, no, he's that character. And the importance is that stories need to be told so that we can learn from them. So the way I get here is, within the Bible, there's a lot of stories. There's a ton of stories. And there's a lot of stories that are really hard stories. They're not pretty. They're not like easy stories. In fact, the Bible has some of the hardest, horrific stories that I've ever encountered. You could take the story of Moses and Egypt. the Pharaoh in Egypt, and how Moses wants to take the Israelites out, they're slaves, and the Pharaoh's like, no, they're my, you belong to me. And so in order to tell that story, someone has to be Pharaoh, who is kind of a deplorable character. He's so stubborn. He's so stubborn that thousands of his own people suffer, their cattle dies, their land is destroyed, their water is destroyed, and then ultimately their babies, their children are destroyed because of him, because of his pride. And so I would have to play him, but through the lens of how can I understand why this person does what he does? And so then I look at what is the overall message of this story, and is that worth telling to justify the evil character that I'm playing? And then ultimately, no character is evil in his own eyes. Everyone thinks that they're doing the right thing. They just have misguided motives or objectives. Another one is David and Bathsheba, which is a biblical story where David was one of these great kings of Israel, like one of the greatest. He is the greatest, probably. He's called a man after God's own heart, meaning God delighted in him, or something about David was very close to who God is. And yet David committed adultery. He killed the woman's husband. He slept with her. He impregnated her, then had him killed. And yeah, it's horrible. There's no way that God condones that action. And so as an actor, I'd have to think through, why is this character in this story? Why is this story being told? Is it one that I believe in? And therefore, my job is to tell that character's story as honestly as I can. But then there are some stories, some movies specifically, that I wouldn't want to be a part of, no matter how much they paid me, because I don't believe in what they're promoting. Certain things like American Pie, which I haven't actually even seen, but it's promoting a view of sexuality that I don't think is realistic. There's a view of women that I don't think is realistic, a view of manhood that I don't think is realistic. It's all about how to get women to do whatever you want and get them to show you their boobs, and that's what the movie's all about. And so I'd be like, well, I don't think I want to be in that movie.
Oh man, I think that it's so funny that this is your example, considering all the shows that have been made over the last few years, and you're like, no, American Pie, that's my example for this. Because the first thing that popped in my head when you said that, there's this CW show that's called Lucifer, which is literally a show about the devil who just lives on Earth and tries to have a quote unquote normal life.
Oh, interesting.
So I thought maybe that would be an example, but then I realized oh yeah, you definitely haven't even heard about that show.
Although I feel like maybe I have, but I mean,
it's fairly popular.
So I haven't seen the show. You could probably tell me more about it, but that's a very compelling idea. And so if a show tells us more about humanity, or what does it mean to be human, or the good and the bad sides of being human, which maybe that's what that show does, that would be interesting for me, at least. It's the shows or the movies that detract from humanity. They objectify. They take away people's humanity by making them, just the slutty girl, or just the guy who's always trying to get laid. And certainly that is some people's motives, but I'd rather have a movie that actually tries to be as realistic as possible and doesn't just make things simple. It's kind of why I don't love superhero movies as well. Kind of oversimplifies things.
Oh man, it's so funny to me because I'm the complete opposite. My ideal movie is a really good superhero movie with a strong story. And I'm like, yes, the morals.
You're right. And I could totally be convinced. It's not a hill I need to die on. I think there is something really cool about somebody who doesn't think they're a superhero getting powers and then realizing what this means to have this power or responsibility or abilities and doing it for good. I think that's a cool thing.
Oh, here's a nerd warning for everyone. Oh, that's my favorite anime right now. Just that story is literally what happens in that complete story.
Wait, what's it called?
It's called My Hero Academia, and it's a superhero world. Everyone has powers, but some are born without. And this boy just wants to be. His idol is the world's number one hero, but he doesn't have powers. And all of a sudden, he encounters the number one hero, and apparently his powers are transferable. And he gets these superpowers, and he starts to learn how to be a hero. But he was born a hero before he was one,
Hmm.
because the
Hey,
number
that
one
sounds
hero,
awesome.
yeah, so the number one hero recognized like his morals are great. He jumped in when everyone was just watching, and that's why you're supposed to be my successor.
Hmm.
So it's so funny that you're like, oh, if it's this, then I would love it. And I'm like, this is this show.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I'd love to watch that. That sounds good.
So I'm very curious, like long-term plans. How are you and Briana? Like, how long are you planning to stay? Are there specific plans for the future? Are there specific things you need to be like thinking about uh, when it comes to the group? Or is it possible that the group says like we have other plans for you, we need to move you? Like
Hmm.
how is the future painted so far?
Hmm. Yeah. So we signed up for 2 years, although we got a 3-year visa, and so we're definitely open to 3 years. In fact, honestly, I think I think we're gonna do 3 years, and even potentially longer. We've really enjoyed it so far. Really enjoyed Amsterdam, and especially the community that we have. Like, gosh, it's like the people that you're surrounded by versus where you live. That's what makes a place worth living in. So we're definitely down. We're excited. We're enjoying it. We've got some big new changes to our life coming up. I don't know when this is going to be released. Maybe we'll have made it public by then. And but then, yeah, as far as our organization, there's a lot of room for growth within the city. Several different campuses that we would love to be a presence at, so that students know how to find us if they're that type of person that has questions or is searching for some sort of answers, or even just a mentor. We'd love to be available. So people are like, oh, if you need that, like the Navigators is who you should talk with. That would be awesome. And then as far as the Navigators in general, I love the Navigators, and I probably am going to do this for my career unless God makes it very clear that I should do something different, which would probably be more in the realm of creativity. My hope is to kind of blend creativity and this mentorship work that I'm doing. We will probably move back to the States at some point. That's kind of the game plan right now. And we would live either in Colorado, where I'm from, or Oregon, where she's from. But that doesn't have as much clarity to it. So right now we're just like, we're here until he makes that next step clear.
All right. I was actually wondering, like, creative. You're such a creative person. Like you saying that you want to do something creative. My first initial thought was like, what is that for you, Scott? What is that creative job for you?
Oh, dang. Well, this, Joey, honestly, is a huge part of it for me. I've been wanting to do a podcast for a long time and didn't have the buddy around me to do it with. So you're actually like a huge gift to me. And yeah, I kind of mentioned earlier, I love telling stories. And I think stories have such an ability to help people learn things about who they are by seeing it told through a story. And so when I think of creativity, that's what I want to do. I just don't know the medium all the time. So right now, podcast, tell stories through the podcast and help people be like, oh, wow, that person, they believed in that thing. That was really cool. Maybe I'll look into it. Or, wow, they doubted that thing about their faith. That I'm also struggling with that or something. But then I've got a whole bunch of, theater or dance, short film ideas, and I would love to make those. I think I'm just kind of waiting for the right people to collaborate with but there are, stories that are in my head that it feels like God won't let me get onto a new story until I tell these ones that are in my head. Because I've had them for a while.
That's really cool. It's the first time that I hear you mentioning dance, and next time I see you, I would definitely want to see you dance.
I'm an okay dancer, but I have fun ideas of how to make other people dance. That's what I would like want to be the director. But then even then, I wouldn't even know how to, I'd be like, plie? Maybe put a plie in, do a twirl thing. And they're like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, crap, I need to find a choreographer.
That's a lot of. I just imagine you standing on the side, like, yeah, I like what you're doing, but try to turn around like this a little bit. And they're like, you're just turning your hands. Like, do you mean our upside or our hips? Like, what do you want us to turn?
Oh man, yikes! That could be a disaster.
So, Scott, I want to ask you, what is one message that you want to give the world right now? Like either when it comes to religion or creativity, like if you can just send one message, your final message, what would that be right now?
Dang, Joe, you should do this more often. You're good.
I listen to so much Tim Ferriss. Like I should be good at this at one point.
So I've been learning a lot this past year. Part of my preparations just for myself was to get back in touch with my creativity. Shout out to this book called The Artist Way. It was really powerful for me. Did my morning pages, my artist date. Maybe we'll talk about this more at some point, Joey, but I started to realize how much I was blocking my own creativity due to fear or jealousy of other people that were more successful than me, fear of failing, fear of succeeding, of not knowing what to do if I did well. And this book helped me realize that every child believes that they're an artist. Every child says, I'm a painter because I painted. Or I'm a drawer because, look, I drew this thing. Or I'm a princess because I have this dress on. And the imagination is just like full at play. Nothing is holding it back. And it's only in adulthood that we start to tell ourselves things like, be realistic. You're not a princess. Princesses don't exist. Or you're not a drawer because you're not as good as your brother, which was my case. My brother's an amazing drawer. And even actor. Scott, you're not an actor because you're not currently acting. So all these messages that were like kind of self-preservation. Well, if I don't tell people I'm an artist, then they will never be disappointed in how not an artist I am, or not an actor I am. And so I start to like wall off parts of who I am. And I think everyone does this. It's not just me, because I actually think everyone has creativity in them. So ultimately, I get that because in the Christian narrative, God created the entire world. And he did it like spectacularly. It's just like nuts. And so he's creative, and then he made us in the image of him. So we're creative. It's the image of our creator. So when we create things, that's the divine in us coming out. And so, yeah, my message is that we need to stop censoring ourselves and kind of feeding that the narrative of be realistic, be productive, or professional. I mean, just all these things that cut out the child inside of us, the little inner artist child. And ultimately, this is honestly what Jesus talked about too. He said, if you can't receive me like a child, then you will not inherit the kingdom of God. So he's about coming back to childhood spirit as well. And so, yeah, we need more of that. So it's starting with me. I'm figuring out, how do I do this for myself as well? But I think we are most like God when we're being creative. And that would probably be my message.
I honestly really hope that the recording isn't botched because my internet just froze for a second.
No.
Oh no. We'll figure that out in a few minutes when I start editing. But so far, so what you said, what I what I caught, and I really hope the audio cuts everything, is that you want us all to just be creative and let go of any form of doubt.
Yeah, shoot, that'll be interesting to see what did cut out. But yeah, basically, I'm kind of connecting these dots of like, in the Bible, it talks about how God made us in His image. So then I'm wondering, what is the image that He made in us? And so then I'm also realizing how hard it is as adults to be creative, and how as children it's not hard at all. And it's and even identity as an artist, every child believes that. I paint, therefore I'm a painter. I draw, therefore I'm a drawer. And it doesn't matter how good it is, it's just the fact that you did it and therefore you are. And that childlike sense of creating, I believe, is the divine in us. That's the image of God. And so we are more like God when we are created, when we're creating. And so I'm working through a process of rediscovering that creativity and not censoring it with the messages of doubt, of you're not very good, you're not as good as this person, fear of failing. So yeah, I think in my walk with God right now, He's teaching me how to be more courageous with my creativity.
Which you're doing a very good job at. Like I always compare myself to others. Funny thing, everyone in the improv group does this, so it's not just me, which is a good thing. But man, you're so naturally funny and creative. Like you step into a scene and it feels like you're just ready to go. It doesn't matter that it's improv and that you don't think of a character. It feels like you've had this whole thing figured out before you step on. But at the same time, you realize like, oh yeah, this is improvised, because sometimes you just you think about everything at the same time while you're standing there, and other times it's like, I'm a character, I'm alive, I can stand here and just do my thing. And that's and that's absolutely what I love about you, but also about you as a character, as yourself, because that's just who you are. You're just open, you're creative, you're funny, but also really kind and nice to everyone, like extremely inviting.
Thank man. Thank you.
Just spouting those compliments.
I really appreciate it. Yeah, that's awesome to hear. I really appreciate that.
So these were all the questions I prepared and randomly asked, and I'm actually like down on my my last thing, and that is telling people that you're gonna interview me next time.
That's right. That's right. I'm gonna take notes from you, Joey, as an interviewer. Man, you killed it. Those are great questions.
So I want to say to the audience, thanks for listening. It was a lot of fun interviewing you, Scott, and I feel like I've learned a lot from you as both my friend and as a as a Christian.
Thanks for interviewing me.
And to everyone, see you in the next episode.